Hi, teachers. I am excited to share a few ideas with you for 2nd Nephi chapter 28, both lessons. So I want to start out with the first lesson, 2nd Nephi 28, 1 through, I think it's about verse 26. This chapter is so important to understand in its context. So in 2nd Nephi 27, Nephi just spent this whole time talking about this book that's going to come forward in our day, and it's going to be a marvelous work and a wonder. So when we get into chapter 28, right at the start, Nephi says that the things which are written in this book will be of great worth. And it's interesting that he does that right before he goes into then what the world's going to be like when the book comes forward in our day and time. As I went through chapter 28, something just jumped out at me that I've never noticed before. Nephi's whole focus seems to be on this concern he has that in the last days, people would listen to the precepts of men and the doctrines of devils. And he gives it examples of both of those. And he repeats it over and over in the chapter, the precepts of men, the precepts of men. Here's the definition. In a general sense, any commandment or order intended as an authoritative rule of action, but applied particularly to commands respecting moral conduct. Moral conduct. A different definition, a general rule intended to regulate behavior or thought. So I would just start out with this question to start this lesson. Sometimes that's all it takes is a good question that really gets them thinking before you jump into the chapter. But I would, after defining what a precept is, ask this question. Can you think of something society teaches us about moral conduct that is contrary to the truths of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ? There are so many things out there today that we're bombarded with that are the precepts of men. Things that are supposed to guide our moral conduct, and oftentimes even rules or laws that man tries to create to regulate our thoughts on these important issues, these doctrines. And so that question alone hopefully will get them talking about some of those things that they witness in society today. There's two quotes that I think are fabulous that I would use in this section of the lesson. One from President Benson, one from President Nelson, talking about how the Book of Mormon then is the thing that's going to help us combat these philosophies of men, as well as the doctrines of devils. Nephi points out that some of these things are going to be the doctrines of devils, some are going to be the precepts of men, or as I like to call them, earth and hell. So when the Lord in section 6 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verse 34 says, let earth and hell combine against you. But if you're built upon my rock, it'll have no power over you. So whether it's the philosophies of men or the precepts of men, or it's the doctrines of the devils, as long as we're built upon his rock, which the Book of Mormon helps us to do every single day, we'll be fine. We'll recognize those things that aren't the doctrines of God, and and the Book of Mormon will help us to do so. So as I would have the students go through 2nd Nephi 28, I would have them look for that idea of the precepts of men and what is it they're going to teach in the last days. The other thing to have them keep an eye out for is, he says that people in the last days will deny the power of God, including the gift of the Holy Ghost. Moroni echoes this exact thing in Moroni chapter 10 as he's concluding the Book of Mormon, where he says, deny not the power of God, and by the power of the Holy Ghost you may know the truth of all things. He was very concerned, knowing the Book of Mormon would come forth in our day, and having seen our day, that people would deny God's power, and they would deny the gift of the Holy Ghost, or even a need for the Holy Ghost, or that it's even real that we could be led by the Holy Ghost. So have the youth look for those two things as you go through 2nd Nephi 28. I bring that up because sometimes we teach 2nd Nephi 28 as just the tactics of Satan, and I noticed that the manual did that as well. The teacher's manual, the curriculum. It's just the tactics of Satan, but help them to see that it's both the precepts of men and the doctrines of the devil, and specifically that the Book of Mormon, in context of what Nephi is teaching us, it is the Book of Mormon that will help expose those philosophies. There are some great ideas in the teacher's manual, and so take a look at that as you go through this chapter. But if you lay this foundation and talk about the precepts of men and that men will deny the power of God and the Holy Ghost, it's going to lead in perfectly for what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'm going to wrap this up and let this be its own lesson gem, and then I'll do a separate one for tomorrow's lesson in 2 Nephi 28. So enjoy this. This is just so relevant, as Nephi truly was just seeing our day and seeing what these youth are dealing with, what we're dealing with. And it's pretty sobering when Nephi makes the comment that everyone's going to be led astray, save it be a few who are the humble followers of Christ. I'm quoting out of verse 14. But then this sobering line, nevertheless, those who are the humble followers of Christ, they are led in many instances that they do err because they are taught by the precepts of men. This is a sobering chapter, but I'm grateful for prophets who help us to see through these precepts of men, and that the Lord has provided us with the Book of Mormon. What a great opportunity to make a plug for March Madness if your youth are doing March Madness. And just the power that comes from being in the Book of Mormon daily. And I'm grateful for this wonderful book, grateful for this specific chapter in 2 Nephi chapter 28 and how it can fortify us against the philosophies of men and the idea that we no longer believe in God or the power of the Holy Ghost. Grateful for how the Book of Mormon exposes these enemies to Christ.